All right, we got some time for a little Q&A on the virtues of open theism. So if you have a question, raise your hand. Marcia, do you have is Marcia here? I'm not seeing her. Do we have a roving mic movement? She's not here, and we don't have a mic? We do have a mic. We do have a mic. Tom Belt's coming to get it there. And I see GB in the background there. We'll let him have the first question.
What is open theism? I just don't get it.
Well, that's true.
And go. I love it. That was predestined. I suspect you'll agree with this, but because great minds think alike, right? We've said that to each other many times. But it seems to me the linchpin of this is and it really is the dividing line between open theism and I think the blueprint theology. It has to do with God's glory, because God's glory sort of encapsulates all the virtues. And there's a fundamentally different concept of glory that we're working with. I've read in author that I'm sure most of us know, that God only glorifies himself. He will not give glory to another. Everything he does is for his own glory. And I thought of that when you started off with the comment, why is God so hung up on making sure everyone sees how great he is? That's not usually identified as a good character. Whereas it just strikes me that Jesus, in the Gospel of John especially, in that last prayer, he says, Father, the glory that you gave me, so there's already a giving away of glory. Right. He says, I've given to them. Right. And that's how they're glorified. So the glory is precisely in giving it away. And Jesus identifies that with the cross, where he most glorifies the Father is when he gives his self away on the cross. And so it's just the opposite of a God who will not share glory with another. I think the open view tends towards a view of God where he's glorified precisely because he does give his glory away to others. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
I guess that's my question.
I was going to say, where's the question?
Let me just, one further comment. I've only done a very preliminary study of the term glory, for instance, in the New Testament. And what I found just in a surface, kind of just all the examples or times when it occurs, was, my goodness, it is not glory as we tend to think of kings and the glory of dominion. It's a glory of sacrificial love. And the glory of God comes out in the life and ministry of Jesus and in his death and resurrection. That's the glory. And it's like, put yourself in a Roman Empire. That's glory? Wow. You guys don't understand what real glory is. And I think that we still have those same two views of glory.
I have a question about eschatology. Mm-hmm. And you've been talking about the importance of faith, hope, and love as far as characteristics of God and also characteristics that we're to have. I know one of the emphasis within open theism is that God is love and even that God is beautiful. And I know that for many people, eschatology can be a very scary thing, thinking about the end times, and it's going to be kind of a violent time and a scary time and a dark time. So what I'm wondering is, thinking about the centrality of faith, hope, and love, how does or how can open theology contribute to a more loving and hopeful eschatology?
Oh, yeah. Well put. So how can openness theology contribute to a more loving and hopeful and faithful? My doctoral promoter and supervisor, Audrey Koenig from the University of South Africa, actually wrote a book called, the title escaped me, The Eclipse of Christ in Eschatology. That in typical eschatological visions, Jesus has really little to do with it. And he wanted to say, no, Jesus is the center of the Christological vision because it's about transforming people's lives and the communities that they form. So I would like to suggest that it is that hope that God is at work. And it's not just among open theists. God is at work worldwide to create communities in which people actually become followers of the way of Jesus and live a life of the way of Jesus. So is that hopeful? Well, yeah, what better hope would you have than following Jesus? Is it a guarantee? No. And so that's where some people then say, oh, so then I don't have a hope. Because they can only hope in that which is certain, but actually hope is that which you don't have. It's not a done deal. But God is working to bring this about. That's how I read Romans 8:28. God is at work to bring these things to fruition. So, actually, I'm not really adding anything to what you said.
Hi, I'm Simon from Seattle.
Yes.
I loved what you talked about with the inclusion of the Gentiles. It's like this beautiful quintessential image of a God who rolls with it, and kind of has a selective way to reinterpret the past and kind of go in a new direction, which is prostrate before the cross. And I just love that. And that is actually the view that Sylvia Keesmaat, I don't know if you know Sylvia Keesmaat, she wrote a book with Brian Walsh called Colossians Remixed.
Okay.
And she she created a white paper PDF you can download online called Welcome the Gentiles. And it is a paper that created a framework for allowing lesbian, gay, transgendered people into body of the church. And using some of the same language as this is kind of, it seems good to the Spirit and to us, right? So I'm kind of on that journey myself. My community is the largest neighborhood in Seattle. It's 70,000 people, and about a third of them are gay. So 23,000 people in my neighborhood are gay, and I would say probably they don't really have a church to go to, because the liberal churches that they can go to aren't really Christian, and the conservative churches they really can't go to. So there's which in a gentle way, I say that. So I know that some of you guys probably have incredibly loving. Anyway, so the question is, I want to know is, how do I know that I'm being faithful to God in this? It seems good to me and the Spirit to create.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. You got it.
All right, yeah. So it's not, it seems good to me, it seems good to us. In the book of Acts 15:25. It seems good to us and the Holy Spirit. So it was out of the debate of those who were stakeholders in the community. And they didn't all agree. And one thing I forgot to say is that it wasn't a done deal. It looks like a done deal in Acts 15, but then you read on that Paul confronted Peter in Galatia, that Peter was backing away from it. And Jimmy Dunn, a Methodist Biblical New Testament scholar, suggests that Paul actually lost his support from Antioch over this, that they went in the opposite direction of the Jerusalem Council. So, okay, so Christians aren't always going to agree. So you've raised one of the biggest hot-button issues, in our among Christians today. And this is one where it's just obvious Christians don't agree on this one. Will we ever come to agreement? I don't know. There's at least 6 different views on the market out there about how to handle this. And I'm not, by the way, if you're looking, so what's, settle it. No, I'm not going to do that. I may be stupid, but I'm not a fool. But what I'm actually looking for is, okay, can we really dialogue and converse about it, read the scriptures, talk about the way of Jesus, and understand how people would read the Bible differently, and then come back at them and say, okay, I think I understand your argument now, but let me push back against that. So we actually have a conversation. We typically don't. The other thing is, even when we disagree, and if we say to those who are homosexual that you're wrong in this, okay, whether it be the lifestyle or behaviors or particularly what is wrong, it still has to be love towards everyone, and that has to be central to the message. How you do that, how you live that out, will be different. But I think those two things have to be paramount there. So I'm not trying to resolve it. I have no illusions about resolving such a difficult, challenging issue. But
Loving conversation.
Yeah, and disagree. I mean, again, I'm not saying, it's just everything goes. No. I mean, the conversation is with people who disagree. I mean, but you're open to hearing them. and listening to them, and they should be open to hearing you and listening to you. And it's through that that the Spirit is going to hopefully work.
That's good. To your extreme right over there, John.
Okay?
Hi, my name is Matt. I was thinking about your comment about God being competent, and I interact with a lot of new atheist guys. So I think it was Christopher Hitchens who talked about how, since the formation of the earth, 90-odd% of all the species that have lived here have died. In 100,000 years of human history, a lot of people for a long time lived in wars and extreme violence and so on. I guess with that level of, and his conclusion was God is either, a tinkerer, incompetent, malevolent, he said a few other things. So how do you reconcile that idea of God being competent with a comment like that by Hitchens?
Yeah. So, that comment principally relates to suffering and evil, and there just seems to be too much of it. Whether it's the cessation of species, let alone the short lives. How did Hobbes? Short, miserable, and brutish. Human lives are short, miserable, and brutish. Thomas Hobbes. So, what do you say? Well, I don't think that there's an easy answer back. So I'm willing to admit, yeah. What I do in my own life is I look at Jesus, and I really do believe this is the way to go. And so I trust in that, even though I don't have answers to everything I would like to have. All right. But it seems to me that the way of Jesus is the wise way and would help others, and because it cares about those people and doesn't just run roughshod over them and say, we'll use all the resources, we don't care that you don't have any. And then in terms of all the species, and most mutations and things like that die out, they really don't live. Here we get into evolutionary theory, and Christians and even open theists disagree about that. And my own view is, I affirm evolutionary theory, and don't see a problem with that in openness or even with the Bible. And that God gives the creation the opportunity to develop, but doesn't necessitate which way it goes. And so some people call it tremendous waste. Holmes Ralston III calls it a cruciform nature, that we live on others. We live because of what they give to us. So that's how I would say I'd approach the answer. But it's there's no problem. Yeah.
Back here.
Yeah, my name is David. You mentioned a little bit about the atonement. I just had a question. Is there any tension between open theism and the notion of vicarious sacrifice?
Well, first of all, let me say that there is no single model of the atonement that open theism requires. Okay, so that there's not like, this is the open theism view. There's multiple views that are amenable to it. There are open theists who believe in penal substitution view. Is there anything logically incompatible there? I'm not sure. I suppose we would disagree. I'd be interested in what some other people say about this. I mean, I don't find it. I think it has lots of problems. Some of which have to do with the moral nature of God requiring this, necessitating somebody else being punished. Somebody has to be punished. That's a problem for me, because I don't see that in the God of Jesus, that somebody has to be punished. That something has to be done about this very serious problem. Yes. So did I address your question?
Yeah, I just, it's an issue that I'm exploring, and I was curious as to whether, one view of the atonement is part of the open
No.
package, and so that's helpful.
No.
Would you say, though, John, that openness folks are probably going to lead with the love of God?
Yes.
And those atonement theories that emphasize that,
Right.
they're going to be attracted to.
Right. And so there are actually a number of them. Larry Shelton has a book. Is it Cross and Covenant?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Cross and Covenant. He's a retired fellow. But wrote about Cross and Covenant, in which he tries to say love and relationality are central to covenant and God's covenant with us. And so he looks at each of the, like 7 or 8 models of the atonement that have been put forth in the history of Christianity, and says this one has, this aspect of love and relationality with it. This one kind of suffers. Doesn't say much about that. It's just about bookkeeping, and so he doesn't. He actually says there's a number of them that are helpful. Even though he puts it together under covenant, but so I recommend that book.
Excellent. Over here.
Okay, I'm Keith. I liked your talk about all the virtues of open theism, and I saw that it mainly gave the fact that God is good, and you mentioned several attributes of God, and that makes open theism inherently virtuous. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering if there are other virtues of open theism that help us as humans. I feel very strongly that it adds a consistency to thought, and there's probably others, so I was just going to ask you if you have any thoughts along that line.
Okay, so you're thinking of what we might call epistemic virtues of the mind, of the intellect, or others.
any virtue that would be helpful to us humans.
Well, okay, as I said, this is my initial foray. This is just, first run. This is the first time I've ever presented this material. So if you have specific suggestions, I would like to hear them, Okay, all right. But off the top of my head now, I don't. I mean, there's a book called Epistemology, Becoming Intellectually Virtuous by Jay Wood, in which he has 2 chapters where he talks about what it means to be intellectually virtuous. And some of these tie right in, and you would articulate them, I think, in the ways that he has done. So he actually lists a whole bunch of them, and I sort of just put them together under a couple of headings. Jay Wood, yeah. It's called Epistemology, Becoming Intellectually Virtuous, published by InterVarsity Press.
Well, we've gone a little over our time. Let's thank John again.
Thank you.